Good morning, I'm Robert Tan. From your wallet to the wider economy, join us as we follow the money. Chips, chocolate, biscuits, simple purchases, but behind them is a billion-peso business shaped by inflation, geopolitics, AI, and changing consumer behavior, especially among Gen Zs and Millennials. And today we follow the money with Aleli Arcilla, Managing Director of Mondelēz International Philippines. Good morning, Aleli. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning, Robert. Thank you for having us and inviting us today.
Thanks for joining us this morning. Now, Aleli, the snack industry, the snack business is so massive now, but a snack may cost just a few pesos, the small ones, but connected to a global supply chain. Now, where does that money move before most of the product reaches a Filipino consumer?
That's actually a very insightful question because it takes us to the core of what we do. Okay, so what the consumers fail to realize even before the snack gets into you and gets into your mouth is that there are a lot of work that's coming in behind the scenes. Okay, so so the money moves in an upstream, basically to source our materials, our supplies. We do have high quality ingredients that we source from global countries and the global economies, particularly dairy, cocoa, oil, sugar, even nuts. So those are sourced outside sometimes of the Philippines and even globally, and that's where the money moves. The other one is on sourcing packaging materials to make sure that the integrity of the product gets to you at the right expected quality as well. And of course, we endeavor to have recyclability in terms of our packaging as well, because it's one of the key thrusts of our company.
It's a very volatile supply chain, and also in terms of logistics, I could just imagine it's kind of a nightmare getting all these products in. People don't really see what's behind the scenes, especially now. We're seeing wars, tariffs, volatile commodity prices, currency swings. Now, which of these quietly become the biggest threat to the snacking business?
If you are familiar with the Q1 release earnings for 2026 of our company, what has become the toughest challenge that we had to overcome is really the commodity input costs. So, like I said earlier, globally our biggest raw material would be cocoa and dairy. And those have been fluctuating in terms of purchase price for us. So I think that's one of the key things. Number two, of course, is the volatility around supply chain. So with the current impact of the Middle East crisis, sometimes the Strait of Hormuz is open, sometimes it's closed, right? So sometimes when we wake up in the morning, we don't really know. So the impact of global supply chain on logistics and moving costs have become very challenging for us in the recent months.
Now, how do you strike the balance now in terms of pricing the products, especially in a crisis? People are tightening their belts, but of course your prices of your raw materials go up, especially if those in the supply chain are imported from places that are affected by the geopolitics happening in the Middle East, the oil and everything like that. So how do you balance that, pricing it, and also taking into consideration your customers who are kind of tightening their belts?
Yeah, that's actually a really relevant position right now. As we've seen in Q2 after the Middle East crisis impacted us, it was really on consumption. And one of the key drivers of value is pricing. However, for us manufacturers, what we really need to be cognizant about are the expected value proposition that we have. So to balance that, we ensure that we still source very high quality ingredients at cost-effective pricing, so that when we do manufacture, we also look for ways to make our operations more efficient so that we don't pass on to consumers the increase in price that manufacturers are actually getting. So in fact, for us Mondelēz, we don't even after the Q2 crisis, we're not planning to have any price increases just yet. What we're trying to do really is on the back end efficiencies that we're sourcing and we're looking for.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, it's a non-negotiable in terms of the quality of the raw materials you're trying to provide, but then not really passing it on to the customers, because there are, some smaller businesses who have really small margins.
Yeah.
So, minsan, quality
Correct.
raw materials are sacrificed. So, again, how do you input that into the system for Mondelēz?
So it's a whole supply chain system that we actually use, from raw materials to logistics and down to working with distributors, for example, so that they can our products are actually available, no, for them to purchase. And it's the understanding the value chain end to end, coming from the source itself, and then our buying tactics will be shifting over time, so that we can, buy in bulk, for example, or we can negotiate a different price, so that it does not impact our consumer-facing price.
Has technology helped in terms of either lessening the bumps in the road in the supply chain, cutting costs in other things? Has that really help?
Definitely. So in two areas. So I can say that we do have a sustainably sourced cocoa production in a Cocoa Life program. It's a global program that Mondelēz has. The main focus of that one is to improve the yield of the farmers, such that it doesn't the demand, even if the demand surges or actually it goes down, the volatility of their pricing will have to remain. So it's really increasing in yield. And we have sponsored, or we have provided some grants around technology, so that they can experience better yield, and maybe how to use their new technologies, the sun, solar, and stuff like that, so that you can actually have a more predictable yield. The other half is on the demand planning side. So for us, it's very important to capture demand, to capture the consumer trends, so that there's more predictability on the sourcing of the supply of the raw materials that we have. So that one, we've introduced AI technology as well to do that demand on the back end.
So how do you balance now in terms of sourcing raw materials from outside and sourcing it locally? How much of your materials are sourced here in the Philippines, and how much do you have to source outside, which is greatly affected in the supply chain if any issues happen in the world?
For Mondelēz Philippines in particular, we have 70% of our products marketed in the Philippines as imported products. But they do come from Malaysia, they come from Indonesia, some Vietnam. What we produce here in the Philippines is, in fact, our most loved cheese brand, which is Eden and Cheese Whiz. Okay, so to strike a balance on that one, of course, dairy, to maintain the right quality and consistency of our product, we source it from outside. So we source it from Australia. But however, all the other materials, as much as we can, we source in the Philippines. So there's some sugar, there's some part of dairy also that we put in, some oils and vegetable fat. Yeah, we source them here.
Now, when Filipinos buy, they think they're paying for a snack. But in reality, what are they actually paying for?
In our latest, so every year we do commission a state of snacking report globally. And what's good about it is that Philippines always figures as part of that, because they know that 95% of Filipinos snack at least.
We love snacking.
Yes, once a day. Once a day, at least there's one, right? So what we found out is that, number one, a small snack is actually could be a reward.
A source of happiness.
Correct, source of happiness. Parang if you had a bad meeting, you go out and look for a snack to reward you a little bit. Consumers also pay for the amount of craving that gets satisfied for them. It's more emotive, Robert. And
Yes.
I think the joy of discovery also, if they find something on social media and then it sparks interest and then they look
Yeah.
for it in the stores, what they're paying for is really the joy of discovery. Of what the snack can bring into your life. And social gatherings as well. Social gatherings become more significant, or even the choice of snack that you put in enhances the social.
Now, Mondelēz has been providing snacks for different generations, our generation, and now, now we have the generation of the Gen Zs, the Millennials, and it's a quite different generation right now. They don't seem to buy brands the same way as the older generations did. Now, what's the biggest assumption today that companies like Mondelēz have had to unlearn about the younger consumers that you are marketing to today?
Yeah. So one of the things, I guess, in the same report that I referenced to, is that millennials and Gen Z and the impact of social media has a very deeply rooted cultural shift that's causing that. And of course, us marketers right now, who are part of the older generation, have to unlearn that, because we are in the era of hyper personalization already because of the technology that has been introduced in the future. So the need for evolving sensory needs, sensory perceptions, flavors, texture has to be really spot on, because we need to right now. Traditional advertising, in fact, only talks one way, and you and I both have experienced that in the past, right? But right now, if it does not go up in your algorithm, they do not see your advertising. So you have to stay connected in the languages that they use, in the visual cues that they actually get accustomed to or get attracted to, and then, of course, the content, the amount of content.
In essence, is it much harder to tap the younger generation than the older traditional generation, how they see advertising before and now?
Yes, traditional media offers reach still, because there will be some, our current generation, or even the older generation, you do multi-screen. So as much as possible, we leverage all of the power of those screen time so that we can connect to our consumers.
How do you see it now, the consumers today? Are they more price conscious or are they more brand conscious?
I would say it's yes and no, right? So brand loyalty in the past used to be handed down by our parents, right? Because they used it in the past. What they buy is what you see in the pantry. You have to eat it, because they will say, no, you're wasting money, right?
Yeah.
But right now, what we see as consumer discovery, in fact, when you start talking to them in the right language, if you provide a need that they perceived not to have in the past, but it sparks interest through social media, all of them form part of their now so-called brand loyalty. So loyalty dimensions have changed and the definitions have changed over time. But the need for price also becomes an affordability question.
Yes.
So it's not a compromise. You have to tackle that brand loyalty versus price holistically, because as you grow and make sure that the value is delivered, that becomes part of their loyalty to the brand.
So which is winning? Price consciousness or brand loyalty? Where is it right now?
That's a very interesting question. It's a very interesting question. And like I said, perhaps it would differ depending on the stratosphere you're at, right? Sometimes the weather is different from where you're at. So, but right now, I think the value proposition becomes more and more important and critical to capture consumers. Whether the value for them is through price or the value is a unique selling proposition that your consumers
I'm also
have.
curious about how strategies have changed in this industry, in the snacking business. But before you answer that, Ms. Aleli, we'll just take a short break.
Okay.
We'll be right back. Keep following the money. back to Follow the Money. Still with us is Aleli Arcilla, Managing Director of Mondelēz International Philippines. Now, Aleli, before the break, we were talking about how much has strategy changed from the past. You've mentioned a lot of change in terms of advertising, marketing, because it's a totally different generation now. How much of a strategy change did the company have to make in terms of trying to get the Gen Zs, the Millennials, and you mentioned it's the power is
the power has shifted.
Has shifted
correct,
now
correct.
to the consumers now
Yes.
than the brand. So
yes, and we'll always have to anchor ourselves with what consumers are actually saying, and sometimes what they're not actually saying. Okay, so and we know that, for example, an overnight sensation of a brand gets sparked by TikTok, right? So the shift really happens when, for us, it's how we deeply understand our consumers. So we use multifaceted tools, AI, consumer exploration, in-home visits, those things. We have to change the way we do that so that we can get more into the core of why they will consume our snacks. Number two is also an innovation, because these trends will have to be ahead of the trends so that we can make sure that our pace of innovation and our rate of innovation also sparks a lot of discovery from our consumers that we can capture for whatever it is that they want. Because their influences right now are a web of influences as compared to the past. It's just maybe our parents or your neighbor, right? But right now, the web of influence and the complexity of where they get their sources of information has actually shifted.
But one thing I see that hasn't really changed is that when you do advertising and marketing, we still use a lot of influencers. Before, we used to use a lot of the celebrities and all that.
Yeah.
But now it's a wider range because we have influencers who are TikTok famous, YouTube famous, Facebook famous. So has the company also tapped this kind of influencers to be able to tap the market today? Because that's where everybody is right now.
You're right about that. One of the key shifts that we have focused on is the peer-to-peer influencing or peer-to-peer credibility that social media has actually created. What they see and what experiences that influencers say becomes very trustworthy because it's authentic for them, it's credible, and they actually see how product is being used. As opposed to before, well, there is, you drink a glass of Tang, for example, you see that. But right now, it figures into more social gatherings. It figures into, out-of-home consumption.
Yeah.
How it gets consumed becomes a more credible conversation piece rather than a traditional advertising that we used to have.
Has it become more expensive or cheaper since there are more platforms that you can use online in terms of creating awareness for the products, for the different type of markets you're trying to tap?
It's become fragmented. And that's probably one thing that's driving cost. However, the real tools that we currently have evolved into more specific buying. So the complexity has come from targeting at the back end, but the costs are actually more efficient because you're really talking to someone you want to talk to.
Because before, when you, in the traditional way, when social media was not yet here, creating a commercial, it takes a lot of marketing
it's
money.
On the production
production part,
yes,
But now, one TikTok video can create demand overnight, very cheap. Now, has social media now become more powerful than traditional advertising, or do you still mix both?
In the report that I referenced to earlier, the impact of social media has, in fact, become the most important. The most important avenue to target your consumers right now. Also because there are different layers and different flavors that consumers are looking for in a social media platform, as opposed to advertising. It's kind of static, right? It's kind of static. It's one way, and then every time you get hit by a traditional advertising, it's the same story. So social media, in fact, puts in a lot more flavor, a lot more conversation around it. And that's what consumers or even our Gen Z and Millennials are looking for.
And you have to work around the algorithms, and
Of
sometimes
course.
it's ever changing
Of
also.
course,
and
correct.
you mentioned it's true that the power usually in social media is with the consumers because they can
They can choose to hide or
your ads.
or thumbs down,
Thumbs-
or I'm not interested in this ad, right? There are services like surveys like that you answer.
Now, when we look at technology again, and you mentioned you're also using AI now in terms of, let's say, tracking supply chain or logistics, but how can AI now forecast demand, analyze behavior, and even influence marketing? What kind of decisions do you still refuse to leave to technology and still have it with different people having discussions and not just leaving it to AI and whatever they're churning out? Oh, let's go with this.
AI and technology have definitely become enablers to the business. It becomes faster, faster decision making, faster data analytics. However, one of the key things that we have not really taken out of our system is the understanding consumer needs.
Yes.
Because it's really the consumer connections. It's how they get excited and the body language that you see when they are close encounter with your product, or they discover something new flavors, new textures. It's when their eyes brighten with that. AI cannot replace that. So in the manufacturing world, human interactions, human connections have not been replaced by AI.
Do you still use the traditional way when you do marketing research? You get different people in another, have the taste test.
We still do. I mean, there are still qualitatives that we get.
That's still a very important part.
Yes, correct. So when we do advertising, naka-AI na yan. They really use the glasses so that we know which frames they go to. But it is the insights and the human connection that we cannot replace. It cannot be replaced by AI.
It's very interesting how things have changed now. But
but also
so
because sometimes an insightful manager will actually see there is an aha, there's a light bulb moment. So those flash in the pan trends. You only get not through AI, but they enable you to track, do analytics. But the aha moments and all of those things, and a brilliant idea only comes from a human.
True.
So now, AI cannot do that.
Aleli, I wish we had more time, but before we let you go, we have this portion called the rapid fire segment. You just have to answer yes or no. No need to explain your answers. Now let's start with this. Has the balance of power, you mentioned it, shifted from brands to consumer? Yes or no?
Yes. Consumer, consumer, correct.
Now, can AI build a stronger brand than a creative team? Yes or no?
Yes and no, but not AI cannot do it alone.
Yes.
So that's my.
Now, is shelf space losing its power to screen space, like online shopping now?
Yes and no, because I know you told me not to explain, but I want to explain. Okay, so it's yes, because screen space can do the joy of discovery, like I mentioned earlier. That's where they find out about your product. Yes, but brick and mortar, because we're snacking, we're indulgent, it's all satisfying a craving. So physical availability when they want the snack is very important.
Now, would you rather lose market share than lose consumer trust?
Consumer trust is what I don't want to lose, hands down.
Okay, now will tomorrow's biggest FMCG company look more like a tech company than a food company, yes or no?
No, because we still manufacture food, and food is very emotive to us.
And
finally, but we are
finally,
enabled by data.
True. Now, finally, Aleli, if you follow the money in your industry today, where does it really lead, and what is that telling us about the future of the snacking business?
It really leads to consumer insighting, discovering what our consumers want, and the evolving needs, and rapid innovation.
Okay, on that note, thank you very much for joining us
Thank
this
you,
morning,
Robert.
Aleli, for your insights in the snacking industry, which we all love.
Oh,
And
yes.
hopefully it doesn't go away.
Oh, it will not go away. Filipinos,
Bigger
95%.
and better snacks.
Yes, correct. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
All right, thank you.
And that's all for today. I'm Robert Tan. Thanks for watching. Keep it here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel, and always follow the money.
you.